Hi guys! This week we're going to be working on my fuel tank. The boat is a hallberg-rassy Monson 31, and these boats were built, mine was built in 1976, and it was built with a diesel tank in the keel, encapsulated, and that does not mean that they had a tank that they installed into the keel. It means that the fiberglass of the keel is the tank, and they glass that tank in with no inspection port, so there's no way to get into it except if you want to cut through the floor of the bilge to clean it. But nobody on this boat has ever done that. So the tank has not been cleaned or touched since 1976. And inevitably that means that there is a ton of sludge and algae contaminating the fuel. So when I had the boat surveyed back in October, I knew that this was probably the case, but since it was the only major problem with the boat, I decided that I was willing to take that project on at some point. And when I did the survey, the engine was, I could tell it was surging with the RPMs, which is a sign of contaminated fuel, like your pickup line is getting blocked with chunks of something, especially when it's getting stirred up when the boat's moving, and that's exactly what happened when the boat wasn't moving. It was fine, and the boat was moving, the RPMs would surge. So, and when I took apart my engine and took off the cylinder head and the fuel injectors, and I had the fuel injectors serviced, when they gave them back to me, they told me that yes, there was water in the fuel and it was causing the fuel injectors to start rusting. So that confirms that the fuel is definitely contaminated. So I do want to take on that project at some point in the next year, but right now I just want to fucking sail already. So I got a day tank to put in the stern lazarette, and I don't think it's like a waste to get a day tank and then clean that tank later and use it, because I'm going to want the day tank anyway alongside of it, because when you're crossing an ocean, it's going to be good to have that extra capacity. It's a 20-gallon tank, and then the one down in the keel is 35, so that'll give me 55 gallons of fuel. This is the tank. It's 20 gallons. It was made with gasoline in mind. Gas tanks don't need a fuel return line. So on a diesel engine, there's a pickup line where the fuel goes to the engine, and then there's a return line where the unused fuel, the extra fuel, goes back from the engine back into the tank. So there's no return fitting, and since this tank doesn't have it, Moeller is the manufacturer of this tank, they instructed that I need to get a different sender that has a return fitting embedded onto it and install that. And this is here. So it's the same fit. It's the same sender with the same hole pattern, except it's got this little tube right here, this little barbed fitting. The first thing I'm going to do is a little modification, because this is a 1/4-inch barb, and my fuel return line is 5/16. So what I did was I got an elbow fitting that's just like this in terms of the thread. At least I hope it's the same thread pitch, we'll see. It's the same thread size, 1/8, and got a slightly bigger barb, making it compatible. Luckily, I have a plan B. I did exactly the same thing on my previous boat. In fact, I probably bought that replacement sender I got with the return. I probably bought the same exact item in summer of 2019. I'll probably try to sell this on Craigslist or something. All right, and now the new sender is here. But before I install it, I am going to make sure it's the right height for my tank, which is 16.5 inches high. And this cinder has a range of like 8 inches to 20 inches or something. And why is it? It doesn't matter. I was just wondering why it was 90 degrees and this isn't, but it said this is a direct replacement part, so everything's gonna be fine. So let's read the instructions. I did it once, but I need to refresh my memory. The pivot point on the rheostat is right here. So, and measure the float arm length beginning at the pivot point on the rheostat down the float arm to the appropriate length. If the tank depth is 16 inches, then the float arm length is 10 3/4 of an inch. So, mark the new dimension on the float arm, permanent marker. Okay, the pivot point, 10 3/4 is right there, There's no screwing that up. Firmly grasp float arm near float. Firmly grasp float arm near float and surrounding push-on fasteners towards and surrounding push-on fasteners. That's these little clippies here. Push-on fasteners toward float case until outer edge is there, is 5/16 of an inch less than the proper arm length. Retain 1/16 inch of space between float and inner fastener. 10 millimeters, 8 millimeters. Yeah. There. Yeah. Is he still on? We are. So, once more, sliding float and surrounding push-on fasteners toward float case until outer edge is 5/16 less than the proper arm length. I think maybe we got it now. Retain 1/16 inch between float and inner fastener. That's this one. So this needs to be right on that second dot here. I think that's probably 1/16, so it can spin. That's why they say that. Cut arm at determined float arm length, which is this dot there. Calculate crack bracket length by measuring tank. Measurement should be taken from the inside bottom to the outside top. Pretty much, wait, inside bottom to outside top. This is a fingernail. It's like 15 5/16. Mark bracket at half that tank depth plus 1/2 inch. So that is, I'm just going to say half of 16, which is 8, plus half, which is 8.5. 8.5 minus a tiny, tiny bit there. Okay, ready for the hacksaw again. You really just need to align it. Okay. Align 5-hole screw pattern and gasket with mounting flange. The pattern is not symmetrical. There is only one way to align it. And so let's do. Perhaps if I just. Okay. There are 2 pieces of hardware that I don't know why they're there. This, yeah. One thing to say, this quick disconnect and this terminal here are for the electrical wires that are going to go to a gauge, but we're not going to be doing any of the electrical tonight because the only gauge that works with this sender was out of stock at Fisheries. So we will just be focused on the mechanical aspects of this install. Okay, we're gonna have to use the saw one more time. Perfect. Now, next thing we're going to do is install the hose onto the pickup on the tank. Form a gasket 2 is for fuel, grease, oil, diesel, gas, that kind of thing. Loctite is more to keep the screws themselves from coming loose. Form a gasket is more to keep, it's more for plumbing applications to keep whatever is going through the hoses from leaking. Right here. What I want to do is cut the hole as high as possible, because what I don't want is for the return line to have to dip down and then go back up to the top of the tank. It's going to have to go up a little bit, but I want to minimize the upward travel because return line, there is a pump. It is being pumped, but it's also a lot about gravity. So I want it to have gravity on its side as much as I can. Perfect. If I drill right here, I know it's gonna be okay. Easy. Here's the fiberglass. This is the return line here, and I want to tee into that. This line we want to tee into as well. We want to get this line here goes down to the keel tank. We want to tee into it and go back up there. There. So a little life hack. No matter what the brand is, you don't have to measure the inside of the hose if it's an old hose to know what the hose is. You can just look at the code numbers on the hose. I knew this was 5/16 because it said 0560. That's like inter-brand code for 5/16. And the other one said 0380. Good enough for now. What I need to get that I don't have is a 90-degree one of these. So that will go down right into this hose. That's it for this week. I think we've made a lot of progress in a few hours. It's amazing what good preparation can do. So next week, what are we gonna do next week? I'm going to focus on the other hoses of the engine, getting those back together, putting new ones in because I had to cut through a lot of them, and install the vented loop and work on the fluids, putting back oil and coolant to get ready to when I want to start the engine. Have a good week.